New Zealand is a country that seemingly has it all. In this series, I'll be taking you along every step of the way as we explore the best this country has to offer via road, rail, trail, bike, bus and boat. I'll be explaining its geology, wildlife and history, reviewing its many attractions and offering tips and advice for your own travels to this enchanting land. Starting in Dunedin, this episode follows our drive up the South Island's east coast, spotting the world's smallest penguin, the strange Moeraki Boulders, and exploring some of the coastal towns less featured on travellers' itineraries. Well, today we're meant to be making our way across New Zealand from Timaru to Dunedin. We're about 2/3 of the way there, and the car started making a very loud scraping sound. So we've had to call out the AA, and it turns out we think it's just a stone stuck in the brake pads. So kind of annoying because we have to pay our call out fee, but a relief that it's not something more serious. Well, we made it all the way to Dunedin. Dunedin was originally settled by Scottish people, as you can tell by the name, and it certainly feels like Scotland as it's a lot colder and windier here than it has been in other places we've been in New Zealand so far. We're staying on the south side of Dunedin on St Kilda beach, which has got this lovely dramatic crashing waves and the cliffs in the background which lead to the peninsula here. And of course the peninsula is full of unique wildlife such as very rare penguins and giant albatross, the biggest birds in the world. I think Kath's family are going to go and do a little penguin tour this evening as they come into feed at about 9:15 p.m. Unfortunately there wasn't enough spaces for everyone. I think Kath and I are just going to have a night in just because we're so tired of doing so much every day. But it's a lovely place to just spend and listen to the waves crashing against the shore. As I'm not going on the wildlife tour to see the penguins this evening, I've given Harriet a crash course on my camera, so any footage you now see from this evening of the penguins is shot by Harriet. The Little Blue Penguin Viewing Tour begins at dusk from the Royal Albatross Centre at the end of the Otago Peninsula. Around this time, after a day out at sea, the world's smallest penguins congregate in groups known as rafts. On a purpose-built viewing platform designed not to disrupt their natural patterns, you have the opportunity to watch those rafts come ashore and the penguins scurrying up the beach to their nests where they feed their chicks.
They're really cute.
Really cute penguins.
Really cute. They were like so small. Very good. A little bit cold, but there was lots of penguins, so it was good. They were fantastic.
So this morning we've popped into Dunedin city centre just to have a little wander around, see what there is, explore some of the sites and grab some lunch before we head up the coast. This is a bit odd because it feels like we've been transported back around the other side of the world, back to the UK and Scotland, where you get these kind of stone cathedrals and clock towers. Obviously the difference with these buildings from the stone ones in the UK and Europe is that these are very young in comparison, despite them looking a bit older. This cathedral was started in 1919, so about 100 years ago, and was finished in 1970s when they ran out of money, which is why at the end of it it's got the concrete walls instead of big glass windows. And this lovely building behind me is Dunedin train station, and they say this is the most photographed building in New Zealand. However, I've heard that about quite a few buildings in New Zealand, so Not sure who to believe, but it is a lovely building with some lovely architecture. So if you do have more time in Dunedin and want to explore the wider area, you can get scenic trains from here that go up and down the coast or into beautiful gorges, just to get a look at more of the natural environment.
Nachos were so good!
So we just went to a very good vegetarian cafe which had so much good food I really struggled what to pick, so I ended up going back up to the counter several times. And Charlotte, how were nachos?
The nachos were so good!
So vegetarian nachos were very good as well. We're now going to head out of Dunedin and start the drive north along the coast.
I've been feeling so small. Watch the clock ticking off the wall.
Just an hour up from Dunedin is the Moeraki Boulders beach. This is famous for its perfectly spherical, very, very big boulders that are found strewed across the beach, which are naturally formed. However, upon arrival at the Moeraki Boulders café, we found out you do have to pay $2 just to get down to the beach because it's privately owned land, so they charge to be able to use the walk down to the beach.
Try not to hold me down, feel alive when I'm in this town. Look at these beautiful stars, I wanna drive a faster car. Nothing.
Well, they are what they say on the tin. There's some big round boulders, but it is very strange. They look almost like they're placed here, not like they're naturally formed, because they are just these round blocks on the beach. Some of them even look like giant dragon eggs or something. Maybe some of the eggs have hatched, like this one here, which is all broken open, just the remnants of the shell left.
Look at these beautiful stars, I wanna drive a faster car. Lay my troubles to rest, blow the smoke through my cigarette.
So we've briefly stopped in Oamaru, which is famous for its Victorian heritage area. So on this street, all the buildings are made out of limestone and are preserved as they were built in kind of Victorian times. And all the shops play a part as well, with more vintage style decor.
Try not to hold me down, feel alive when I'm in this town.
Well, this place is a bit odd. The girls seem to think that it hasn't been preserved as Victorian times, it just hasn't been updated since then. And maybe that is the case, or maybe we've come too late in the day and it's just not got the atmosphere it should have.
When I'm in this town, look at these beautiful stars, I wanna take a trip to Mars. Nothing can break me, no, nothing can break me.
We've arrived in Timaru, which is where we're staying tonight. It's about halfway between Dunedin and Christchurch, which is why we picked it. Now we just need to find somewhere to eat, which is always the hardest challenge of the day with this group of picky eaters. What's for dinner?
Stir fry!
I'm gonna be myself, I'm gonna be someone.
So it turns out that Timaru has its own little colony of blue penguins, and we decided to go out tonight at dusk and see if we could spot them. And we did see a few down at the harbour. They nest in the rocks there. There's local volunteers that have helped to get the factory lights turned off so they don't disturb the penguins. The footage isn't great I've got because obviously it was so dark and it wasn't set up like a proper tourist attraction. You just go there and see if you can spot them. There was a few coming up on the beach, waddling up, going back to the nest. We saw a few chicks, which were very fluffy. And these are the smallest penguins in the world, so they really are tiny and very, very cute. But really glad we did manage to see a few. It's about mid-afternoon and I'm only just really picking up the camera for the first time. That's because we were driving north from Timaru to Christchurch, but then decided to make a detour to the Peninsula that's south of Christchurch. So I've driven for about 3.5 hours, and we're now in a small little town called Akaroa, and that's it, right in the centre of the peninsula. And if you look on a map, it's very strange because all the Canterbury plains around Christchurch are very flat, full of farmland. But here on the peninsula, it's a very odd, round, rugged shape, mountainous, and that's because this used to be a volcano. A very ancient one, it's extinct now, but where I'm standing right now is in the crater of that volcano, which is now filled with the lovely blue sea, and the crater's edge has created this nice secluded spot, kind of out of the wind, where it's nice and sunny, and the town here looks really lovely. So we're just going to grab some lunch and go and explore a bit. Akaroa was colonised by the French, and they tried to retain some of that French feel and history. Although, to be honest, it feels a bit more like a quaint English seaside town. It's very nice. It's got some lovely shops and restaurants, and obviously the blue waterfront. Well, it took quite a while to drive out here to Akaroa because of the hills and stuff surrounding it. But I do think it was a worthy detour. It is a beautiful little town in a secluded bay. And if you came here for a whole day, you could go out and swim with dolphins or do some of the water sports. So this is a really nice spot to spend some time. Well, we've arrived at our Airbnb just south of Christchurch on the seaside hills, and they are very steep, so much so that we've ended up parking our minibus over there on the road because the drive down to the Airbnb is down this steep street here. And I'm not sure how well our parking will get down there and get the minibus back up again, but it does offer some fantastic views down over the hills and into the little bay here where there's Sumner Beach at the bottom. I always love it when an Airbnb has some pets. These really cool rock formations here are on Sumner Beach. The mostly straight, flat drives along the east coast offer almost the opposite of the remote and epic landscape of the west. Those grand natural wonders are instead replaced by unique towns and sites, often showcasing the varying European influences on New Zealand's human histories, such as Scottish, English and French. On top of that are some of the best wildlife encounters in the country, including dolphins, seals, albatross and of course the little blue penguins, which were one of Kath's family's favourite experiences of the trip. The next episode will be more of a city guide, exploring all Christchurch has to offer over several days in and around the city.